You've already talked about it a little bit.
Okay.
You can talk.
Right. Summer in Aspen, the first summer I was out of the Army, and finished with the ski season and the ski touring guide.
You talked about that trip that I think you went from Aspen or near Aspen to Crested Butte.
Oh, that was on skis
Yeah,
in the wintertime.
Yeah, you talked about. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, go on.
So, so we, basically we got back from Durango, and I kept getting contacted by Colorado Outward Bound, but every time they contacted me, I was out of town camping or fishing or both, doing a little trail clearing work and painted some bridges across streams on Forest Service trails, because my friend Lars Larson was doing jobs for the Forest Service, and he included me on a lot of that stuff. So I spent part of the summer doing that, and every time Colorado Outward Bound tried to tell me to pack my bags and come to Lake City to work for them, I was out in the forest somewhere working, and when I got back to town, I'd call them up and they say, well, you were out of town, we didn't hear from you, we filled that job already. So I kept missing them. So finally they offered me a free, what they called a teacher's practicum, a free 2-week training session for teachers in the Rocky Mountains near Aspen, near Snowmass actually. And so I took them up on that and went through most of that, and decided from the way they were running that course that I didn't want to work for them anyway. So I skipped the last 3 days and went on my own, and realized that I wasn't going to make any money or have a life simply doing stuff in the outdoors. And that's where I realized I had to go use what I had and go find a job in the business world, in the professional world.
And that was the summer after you got back from Vietnam?
Yes.
And so the most significant part of that summer?
No, not after I got back from Vietnam, after I got out of the service.
After you got out of the service, right.
Yeah. So, I don't remember everything that transpired, but I eventually ended up back in Denver working for IBM in Denver as a computer salesman.
Now, what was that time when you were, you did to Crested Butte, that big skiing trip to Crested Butte? When was that?
Oh, that was, the first one was the first time I went to Aspen after I got back from Vietnam. When I went to Aspen, towards the end of that, I had gotten to know a few of the people in town, and they were real nice to me, and I felt comfortable with them, and they felt comfortable with me, and I got invited on this ski tour, a trip up to Pearl Pass to stay overnight in a one of those mountain hut / log cabin deals that somebody had built up there as a shelter, and so we spent an entire day, like from 6 o'clock in the morning until maybe 9 or 10 o'clock at night, getting up to that lodge at Pearl Pass, and stayed overnight there. And there were 3 men on that trip. No, wait a minute. There were 7 men on that trip, and 3 women. And once we got up to the hut, 7 men collapsed. Special Forces paratroopers, ex-Marines, mountain guides, on and on. Really the toughest of the tough in America, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we crashed, and those 3 women, just American women our age, had enough energy to open up the cabin and get everything straightened out in there so we could sleep over the night there and cook dinner. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
And that made me think, well, wow, God bless American women. They're stronger than the men.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day we got ourselves moving at about sunrise, and ended up forcing our way over Pearl Pass in a blizzard and a headwind. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I mean, I just never been so physically and mentally challenged to get through something. Endure so much pain, so much fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
so much cold wind in my face, you know, and we were all that way. So here we are trudging up through this blizzard in deep snow with packs on our backs. We managed to get over the pass and get down toward Timberline. Things, you know, conditions improved a lot. And we were able to have a nice experience doing some powder skiing as we skied toward Crested Butte.
Hmm.
And we got into Crested Butte that next evening, and it was dark when we finally got into the outskirts of Crested Butte. This is really amazing. We got to the outskirts of Crested Butte, and really had no way into town. We were tired again, and didn't have any place to sleep. So what we did was borrow this guy's barn, and we all slept in this guy's farm barn overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I don't remember what happened the next day to get contact, but we got contact with some people, and they came out and gave us a ride into town.
Hmm.
And then some people came over from Aspen to pick us up and give us a ride back to Aspen.
Mm-hmm.
So, just friends helping friends, people dropping people off one place and picking them up another, that sort of thing. Happens all the time in the Rockies.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I guess everywhere in the world where somebody's going to do a little expedition trip like that. But that's my first trip from Aspen to Crested Butte. And the second one was the second winter when Lars Larson and I guided this guy and his wife and another person over
So
East Maroon Pass.
I'm confused. Like, weren't you? I thought you were still in the service. So, you got back from Vietnam, went to Connecticut, and then went out to Aspen for the winter.
After I got back from Vietnam, I had some vacation time coming.
Oh, okay.
In the Army, they call it leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 2 weeks leave,
Mm-hmm.
and extended it to 3 weeks after I made all these friends in Aspen. I kind of
Mhm.
liked it there. And I called and found out if I could get it extended an extra week,
Okay.
and got that extra week time. So I spent 3 weeks there the first time.
And then the next winter you had leave as well.
And then next winter I was just a plain old civilian out of the Army,
Oh, and you were living there.
free to
Mhm.
choose what I wanted to do within the boundaries of what other people were willing to pay me to do.
Mhm. And when did you go on that road trip? That one where we went through Durango and everything.
After the trip over East Maroon Pass to Crested Butte.
It was during that 3 weeks of leave.
No, that was the next year. The first year was the first trip
Okay, so
over
it was-
Pearl Pass.
It was the second year when you were a
The
civilian.
second year I was free as a bird out of the Army,
Oh, okay.
and it was nothing different from you and Jason decided, hey, we've got a few weeks free
Mm-hmm.
until our next job starts, and we've never been to Salt Lake City. Let's go to Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
And you take off and go to Salt Lake City. It'd be the same idea.
Mm-hmm. But that was a pretty significant road trip, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, because it was around every bend was something new.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you go through again?
We left Aspen and headed west, I guess, on I-70,
Mm-hmm.
and cut off to ski resort town called Park City.
Mm-hmm. Utah?
Mm-hmm.
You went from Aspen to Park City, Utah?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
And we were camping out along the way and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember stopping in Heber City for lunch. And then we went on to Salt Lake City because we were both curious about Salt Lake City. We'd never been to Salt Lake City before.
Mm-hmm.
So we spent maybe a day or day and a half there, looked around the town and did a little resupply shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And then we decided we were satisfied with that and we were going to head south out of Salt Lake City and swing on into the northern Arizona and see what that was like. And that was a time where we had a choice of going straight south and then straight east, or we could cut through the forest on a forest road
Mm-hmm.
and save some time. And we got up to the pass along the highest point on this Forest Service road, and there was a snowdrift on the road that was just never plowed, and it was, big as a garage on a house or something. It was obvious that we weren't going to go an inch further. But they had plowed the road up to what's called the Bryan Head Ski Resort, and so here we are. It's sundown in May. I guess it was about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and so we knocked on the door, and sure as heck they had room for us at the Bryan Head Ski Resort, and we stayed there overnight.
Where was this?
Bryan Head Ski Resort.
Which is where?
It's in I think it's in the Blue Mountains, the Abajo Mountains. It's near Cedar City,
Utah?
Utah.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that was the nearest to that Forest Service road?
Yeah, we got it. It was built just off the Forest Service road,
Oh, okay.
right at the highest point on that road.
Mm-hmm.
And so we couldn't go any further, so we stayed there overnight and then skied there the next day. And then the next day we were invited on another cross-country ski tour to the Bristlecone Pines National Monument. So we went hiking on skis out to these Bristlecone Pines that I'd never heard of before. Yet another learning experience. So there we were, myself and my friend and a group of the people who worked there. Some ski patrol and ski instructor guys from Sweden,
Mm-hmm.
and the manager of the Bryan Head Ski Resort, and we went on a ski tour together. That was kind of fun, just an out and back from the ski lodge. But we hiked out to the Bristlecone Pines area on skis, and then hiked back on skis. It's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is in May. It's nice and warm. Sun's shining, and we're skiing on several feet of snow.
In May?
Yeah.
Huh. And
Real deep snow.
And Bristlecones? Is this where was it? In
Bristlecone Pines,
Utah.
in Utah, near Cedar City.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you'd have to look it up on a map. I'd have to look it up on a map.
Hmm.
But it was just a lovely place to go. Hardly anybody there. It was small, private.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like today. I hope it's grown and it's thriving and it still has that rural local ski area atmosphere like Wolf Creek.
And so what did you do after that? What'd you do? Where'd you go after that?
We ended up in northern Arizona, where I'd always wanted to see the Rainbow Bridge, natural bridge.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like Delicate Arch at Arches National Park.
Mm-hmm.
Only it's a bigger formation.
Mm.
And we found out how to get there, and we could take a boat to the end of this canyon and walk in. or we could hike in from the west side of Navajo Mountain. And at the time there was a place called the Roosevelt Lodge on the west side of Navajo Mountain. If we would drive from Kayenta to Navajo Mountain over dirt roads and desert roads and canyon roads till we ran to the end of that trail. So we left the car there and stayed there at Roosevelt Lodge overnight. And then we grabbed our backpacks and went hiking with a topo map and a compass. Went hiking into the canyon country looking for Rainbow Bridge.
Hmm.
And we hiked down this one canyon with gallons and gallons of water, and water weighs out 8 pounds per gallon. And when we found out we didn't really need to carry 16 or 20 gallons or 20 pounds of water, we discarded a lot of the water we were carrying and drank out of the creeks.
Mm-hmm.
And made it a lot easier
Mm-hmm.
for what we were carrying, because we were carrying food with us too.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned an interesting lesson about desert hiking and camping in that canyon. I was doing the navigating, and I knew that we were where we were supposed to be to find the trail across a pass into the next canyon.
Mm-hmm.
But the trail was invisible. The pass was invisible. We couldn't find it, couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
We were just as close to it as you and I are close. And we couldn't find it. So what we had to do was go past it and go downstream far enough to confirm in our minds that we had gone past it. And then we turned around and came back upstream again, looking on that side of the cliff face.
Mm-hmm.
Until we saw this break in the cliff face. It was kind of angular, so that from one side, from one direction, it looked like there was no crack in the rock, no pass through the canyon.
Mm-hmm.
But coming the other way, you could see the obvious break.
Oh, okay.
So it's just one of the tricks of the desert hiking and canyon hiking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we found our way over to the next canyon, and followed that canyon down to Rainbow Bridge.
Hmm.
It's really interesting. So we we spent the rest of that second day and stayed overnight at Rainbow Bridge. And I actually was crazy enough to find some handholds and footholds on the west end of Rainbow Bridge and climbed up to the top of it. And somewhere in the family's collection of 35 millimeter slides, or a framed print hanging on one of your cousin's walls in her house, is a picture of me standing here on top of Rainbow Bridge.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It exists somewhere. I don't know who has it.
Yeah.
I might have given it to my mother and somebody passed it along to somebody else. I don't know where the slide is. It could be in those boxes there or slides upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun flipping through all of that.
Could I just
Sure.